Hi, my name is Annie Bowler, and I'm an illustrator and artist based in Washington, D.C. I mostly work in children's publishing, so I do artwork for kids' books, kids' magazines, things like that. But in my free time, I love to experiment with paint. So today, I'm going to show you guys a couple of watercolor techniques to help get you started so that you can create some beautiful artwork while we're all stuck inside these days. So I hope you enjoy. I will go over all the materials and everything you need to know in the video. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to shoot me an email. I'll put my email at the end of the video. All right, everybody stay healthy. Don't forget to wash your hands and have fun. All right, I will just go over the materials real quickly before we get started. We're going to be doing some watercolor textures today. So there's lots of fun ways that you can play with watercolor, especially as you're just beginning. It's a really great forgiving medium to do some cool experimenting with, and then you can later transition that into kind of more final artwork that you might want to hang up on your wall. So first things first, we have our watercolor set. Mine is a little bit of a travel set. Yours might look a bit different. Mine is very dirty, for example. I bet yours is a lot cleaner than mine. But basically watercolor, it tends to come in these little blocks that are dry, and they become paint as you add water to them. Usually you'll have a little bit of a trough or something that you can put water in that will hold the water and therefore hold the paint once you add the water to the paint. Next, we have our paper. I have a watercolor block, which is great. If you can find a watercolor paper or a little bit of a thicker cardstock, that would be perfect for this kind of project. But if all you have is computer paper, that will work too. Just be really careful not to add too much water, too much paint to the surface, because it might get a little bit thin. It might not hold the water quite as well. Paintbrush, pretty straightforward. Your watercolor set probably came with one, but any kind of paintbrush will do. This one doesn't require, this project doesn't require a big or a small one. Really anything that you have will work. We also have our different materials here that we're going to experiment with. We'll get into those a little bit later as we go through the different steps. What else? What am I missing? I have a ruler because before I started, I went ahead and drew a grid with a couple of boxes. This step is totally optional, and so you don't really need to do it. So I'm not going to include it in the video, but sometimes it's nice to have drawing materials like a pencil and eraser on hand whenever you're doing any kind of art project. Last but not least, paper towel is always good, can help blotting up paint or just with spills, but it's good to have handy when we're working with our watercolor and paint-based mediums. All right, let's get started. First things first, we're gonna do a flat wash. So our goal here is to create a really even surface of paint in this first block. So you're gonna start by adding water to the well of your paint set here. Or if you don't have a well in your paint set, you can just add it to a little dish. We just have clear water here, and I'm gonna dip it in a little bit of paint. We'll start with this red and mix it up there. And you see it really becomes really vibrant. We have an even color red. And then my goal is just to paint it as evenly as I can into the square here. So I wanna make the paint look, I want it to be the kind of the same color red all the way throughout. So not darker in any corner, kind of keeping it nice and smooth. And this takes a little bit of practice, sort of doing the best you can. And you'll find with the watercolor, sometimes it looks different when it dries. There you go. So that's our flat wash. Our next thing we're gonna try is the gradient wash. So we're gonna try to do it like a nice fade, almost like there's a sunset or something like that. So with that, you're going to also, adding the water, we're gonna start off in the paint this time. My paint's a little thick, so I'm gonna add some more water to my paint. And we'll go really dark with the paint here, and then going into the water in between every stroke. So we're gradually adding more and more water. You'll notice I'm not going back into the paint. I'm just going more, adding more water, and it's getting lighter and lighter. If you have, if you're just using a computer paper, just be aware of over soaking the paper. So you might not get it to be totally light. See, I've got a lot of water happening here. That's all right. Okay, so you see it's darker going to lighter over here. Our next one is gonna be wet on wet. So with these first two techniques, the paper started out dry and I added the wet paint to the dry paper. Now I'm going to get the surface of the paper wet And then I'm gonna add the paint to the already wet paper. So let's do some blue. And as you can see, it's kind of cool how the paint reacts to the wet paper. This can be sort of a interesting way to add different, kind of like a hazy environment or something like that. And you can even see the colors mix and interact, right? So that is the wet on wet technique. It's great for water, like if you're drawing a water scene, it's great for sunsets or hazy backgrounds, things like that. All right, and then we're gonna do overlay. So with our overlay technique, we're gonna kind of do it in 2 steps. So we'll start off here. I'm gonna paint a green circle, and I'm doing the sort of flat wash technique that we learned over here to paint this green circle. It's nice and even. Kind of filling it in. It's not too dark because I want there to be some transparency to it. I'm gonna give that a minute to dry. We're gonna go through the other techniques and then we'll come back and finish with that one. All right, now we're into some of the fun stuff. So this next technique is the scratching technique. It has a fancier name than that, but I can't remember what it is. I am using a needlepoint pin, but you can use a safety pin or a clothespin or a fork, or if you're in a pinch, you could actually use the back of your paintbrush. And you're gonna be scratching into the surface of the water. The surface of the paper. So you kind of draw a little design here. It'll be a little bit hard to see as you're drawing it because it's not making any sort of visible mark. But you're scratching into the paper. Again, if you have a thinner piece of paper, just make sure you're not puncturing the paper. All right. Then you're going to get your paintbrush wet. Let's do a orange or yellow here. All my colors are a little muddy, but we'll see what this one has to offer. And you'll kind of magically see the design that you scratched in show up once you paint over it, because the paint goes into the grooves that you've created in the paper. And you can see the design you made. All right, next is my favorite technique. We're gonna use salt to make a really cool effect. So let's do blue. This technique works better if you use darker colors. So maybe pick a blue or a purple with this one and have a little bit more paint saturating your surface here. So there we go. We're adding a little bit more paint here, and then a pinch of salt. And this is just regular salt from my kitchen. And I'm gonna dab some of it on top, and you can already see the reaction starting to happen. This is really cool to watch. The salt sucks up the water, and then once it dries and you blow the salt away, the paint is darker in the spot where the salt was because the water left it and just left that pigment on the paper. And so that can be kind of cool and unpredictable to see what happens with that one. Next, we have our wax technique. So this one is best with a crayon, and you can make really cool art using a crayon and any water-based paint such as watercolor. I have no crayons, apparently, since we're all stuck at home these days. I kind of looked around my house and pulled a candle off my dining room table, and I'm gonna use that instead because it's wax just like a crayon. So you'll take your crayon or your wax and you're gonna draw a design. If you were using a crayon, it would be a little easier because you could probably see what you were drawing. I cannot see what I'm drawing, but it'll be a nice surprise. So we will get to watch it appear. All right, so you draw with the wax, and because wax resists the water, you'll be able to see the drawing come through. What color should we use? How about, let's see what this is. Might be kind of a brown red. Ooh, purple. Nice, it's always a surprise. Okay, so painting over, and the wax resists the paint, and you have your drawing or your design left underneath it. So that can be really cool. And if you have a crayon, if you have a clear crayon or a wax like mine, it's almost like a mystery drawing. You can kind of exchange notes back and forth. That might be a fun activity. All right, and our last one is rubbing alcohol. So I'm gonna, let's see, we'll do some orange over here. Make a little bit of orange. There we go. That's an example of how to get your paints really dirty. Okay, so we'll paint here. And Gonna add some more water to it. Okay, so here's our paint splotch. I don't have any rubbing alcohol in the jar, like the liquid form. That would be best, but I did find these alcohol towelettes under my sink in my bathroom. So I'm gonna see if this works. Rubbing alcohol tends to resist the paint, and it goes away from it. So I'm gonna see if I can do a little bit of it. It's kind of working. Here, I'm gonna use the back of my pen and just get some rubbing alcohol on it, and then make little stamps with it. So the rubbing alcohol, the paint tends to go away from it. I don't know why, probably has something to do with chemistry. And it can leave some cool designs. If you have liquid rubbing alcohol, you can actually like draw in it and it'll have a similar effect to the wax here. So this isn't working super well with my little alcohol towelette, but give it a try, see what you have at home. And yeah, have some fun with it. All right, and then last but not least, we're gonna go back up here to the overlay guy, this one up here. I'm gonna use some yellow, so get yellow on my brush. And I'm gonna just paint right over top of it, and I'm gonna do another circle. And I have my yellow on this side, and I've created a cool kind of lime green color in here. So this one is has endless possibilities, because that's when you see a really detailed watercolor painting, this is how it works. Artists are layering and layering and layering different colors on top of one another to get a whole variety of colors and textures and feelings and kind of ambiance and things like that. So with this one, you could do a series of polka dots, or you could do stripes with different colors, and see each time it overlaps, there will be a different color combination. And it's kind of fun to see what you can find. All right, I think that's it for the watercolor techniques. I hope that you have some fun with it. And yeah, all right, everybody stay healthy. Thanks so much.